In part 1, I covered the 3 levels of supply we see in the sports card hobby and a couple of ways to make sense of it to ensure you're aware of it and are not overpaying for a card, whether it is purely an investment or something you want for your PC. Now in this video, it's all about the demand side of the hobby, which is vital to not only understand, but get on the right side of, because if you're on the wrong side, you will be overpaying for cards and then just watching them plummet in price and probably feeling a ton of buyer's remorse. And if you're on the right side, you'll save money on your purchases and you'll be able to make a profit on the cards that you want to sell. So with that being said, welcome back. Now let's get to work. First of all, as I was writing out the script of this video, I kept feeling unqualified to even discuss all this because I'm still just a year and a half back in the hobby, but I do love the economics and human behavior side of everything, cards included. But I also want to point out that I learned a ton from not only other content creators, but you all who leave comments about different points that I either made or missed, which of course rounds out my perspective. So just remember that we're a community that learns from each other. I just happen to have a station around it where I am a talking head. So there is a lot to cover, but when most people think of demand in sports cards, they think of the player. Who is the card of? And this definitely has to be number one. If you were collecting rare Tom Brady rookie cards before he became Tom Brady, you'd be retired. But if you did the same thing with Ryan Leaf, then today you'd probably be working at the same Geico office as Ryan Leaf. At the same time, demand is way more than just player performance. We have to know who they are in society. For example, some people became bigger fans of LeBron James based on what he said and what he's done off the court, while others were completely turned off by him altogether and would vow not to own any of his cards. Guys like Shaq and Charles Barkley are constantly in the media as big personalities, which help their demand. And personally, I would rather collect Charles Barkley cards based on his entertainment value than I would collect Tim Duncan cards based on his accomplishments on the court. But that's just me. There's also the team and market a player is on. Some markets are much bigger than others. The Yankees, Lakers, the Cowboys, those are some of the most popular franchises in all of sports, and because of that, they usually get more TV airtime even if other teams have better records. The players on those teams often get noticed a lot more. I feel like the same has happened in hockey over the last few years, where my team, the Tampa Bay Lightning, has just dominated for the last couple of years. They've won 2 Stanley Cups back to back, yet the demand for some of the stars on the Tampa Bay Lightning is not nearly where it should be or where it would be if they played for a team that was more popular or further up north. So that's the player side, but unfortunately there's way more to it than just picking the player. We also have to pick the right card, since there are dozens of cards just for a 2021 rookie entering a league, let alone a player that has been around for as long as Tom Brady. If I search Tom Brady cards on CompC, there's literally over 6,000 results that pop up. That's like saying, I want to invest in Apple stock, but there are 6,000 varieties of Apple stock and only a small percentage will be worthwhile investments. And look, if you're strictly collecting, buy whatever card you like that you can also afford. But in terms of investing, you're relying on someone else eventually buying it from you. So that's where it's really important that you know that there will be demand for the card. Now, if you're completely new to sports cards, the cards that typically are more desirable are a player's rookie cards, rare inserts or variations, and cards with a piece of the player's jersey on it or their autograph. Now, every player is different and you'll have to spend some time learning about this, but that's where studying the prior sales data helps so much, because I don't have to guess what other collectors and investors value. The last factor to include is the grade and grading company attached to the card. And one crazy complexity of this hobby is the fact that you could have a card of a player that is in high demand, but if the card has been graded by a lesser respected grading company, it's pretty much like attaching a scarlet letter to it, and the card won't sell for nearly what it could if it had the exact same grade assigned to it from a more respected company. And what's even tougher to keep up with is the fact that the perception among the different companies, the different grading companies, is shifting all the time. Right now, it looks like PSA is the unanimous number one, with BGS and SGC competing for second and third. but one massive public scandal or merger could completely disrupt this. Personally, I think that most people that have been in the hobby for a while consider these factors already, but here are a few more that are a bit more advanced. And the first is the type of buyer. If you're investing, again, you're relying on someone eventually buying it from you, which means it's important to know who would want that card and why. I did a video on this a while back, but basically we have pure collectors that buy for themselves and never plan on selling, investors that buy with a goal to eventually sell, whether that's a year or 20 years down the road, and then flippers that are looking to get in and out of cards very quickly and often. And when I buy a card to later sell, I'm always thinking, who is my buyer? And I like buying cards that I feel flippers would target, whether they're on eBay or StarStock or anywhere else. Going a level deeper, what is the percentage of people and money getting into the hobby for each demographic? Because we hear that there were a lot more flippers and investors getting into the hobby over the last year and a half, and I bet that's true. I would love to know the statistics of how many people are getting in of each category and how much money they are bringing in, because one collector with a $10 million budget entering sports cards will shift the hobby a lot more than 10 flippers getting in with a $1,000 budget. And as demand goes, also remember that it's based on available funds, because I'm sure a lot of people would love to buy Kobe autographed cards and Jordan rookies if they had the money. The next factor affecting demand is external influences, basically what we hear and watch. Just like watching a player hit a game-winning three or hit a walk-off home run, that moment enters our psyche and changes the way we view the player. Something just as impactful is the hype and discussion around it. So if I notice a trend in prices where I feel a player or card is underpriced or overpriced, I like to share it and discuss it with y'all. And that's what a lot of content is based around, and that's something that's only going to continue to happen and to grow. And I do my best to add disclaimers, so hopefully it's taken in the proper context. But the truth is that we have a lot more content creators with a lot bigger audiences now compared to a year ago, and that's only going to grow. Of course, when the top influencers say or do something, there's so many eyeballs on it that something is bound to happen. And we see this when Gary Vee mentions a card or player being underpriced. He's just speaking his opinion, but enough people choose to take action on it, thus temporarily boosting the demand. And so that takes me to the macro, which is what is going on in the world as a whole. And I find the sports card hobby to be so fascinating because it's literally like a microcosm of the world. Just absolute craziness with so many influences involved and so many factors to consider, kind of like a giant pot of vegetable soup with all sorts of ingredients just being thrown in all the time. So in terms of demand, we also have the time of year. Is it early in the off season, or is hype really high in that sport? Do people have other sports to watch and players to collect, or is there just one or two going on? It's a lot easier if there's only one sport, but if our attention is split many ways, our money will be split many ways as well. What about the weather? Right now we have unlimited ways to spend our money. We can go outside, we can travel, we can catch up on real life again. We have the time to do it and the best weather to do it in, and that of course affects demand. We also have alternative ways of gambling and investing sprouting up all the time. Some people will dabble in NFTs for a bit and others will get hooked for years and years. And then another factor is how much money do we have? There's no surprise that card prices rose when we received bonus stimulus checks while we were stuck inside with very few options to spend our money on. Take away the bonus money and add in 100 new ways to spend our money, and that's going to affect demand. So look, there is a ton going into the demand side, and honestly, trying to solve this never-ending puzzle is kind of fun for me, but at the same time, I'm sort of sick in the head, but that's just how us Virgos operate. And I'm not trying to overwhelm you by any stretch. I just want you to be aware of all the gears that are in motion. And to be honest, I probably forgot to mention a couple, so let me know in the comment section. But regardless, here are a couple of practical takeaways. The first is that we got to understand that there is so much at play that we'll probably never be aware of all the factors influencing a card's prices, and there's a ton that we just can't predict, which could completely wipe out everything we did predict correctly. For example, if Luke and the Mavs landed Kawhi Leonard or some massive star in free agency and they started the next NBA season 15-0, that still probably wouldn't boost his prices if the United States had just declared war on China. More than likely that one factor would do more damage to Luka's card prices than correctly predicting Dallas landing a second star to complement Luka and the Mavs steamrolling the competition. Secondly, even if we'll never comprehend everything that's going on, neither will anyone else, but we can at least try to piece it together a bit more than the average person. So what I did is I put together a list of questions to help myself be a bit more aware of and mindful of what's going on, and I've copied and pasted them in the pinned comment of this video. So check that out if you'd like. But lastly, remember, this needs to be fun. There's a lot of ways to spend our time and money and energy, and the root of this booming industry is it being a hobby, and hobbies are always something we do for enjoyment. Now for me, remember, I find mental stimulation and fun in the chess game of all of this, but again, I'm a bit sick in the head. So if you don't, then don't worry about it. Just stick within your budget and find your fun. I'd much rather you enjoy yourself in the hobby in the ways that resonate with you and will keep you engaged for the long haul than always trying to predict the next move. Now, if you haven't seen part 1 of this 2-part series, make sure to check it out up here. And if you found a bit of value or insight in this video, make sure to pound that like button, and I'll see you guys next time.